leg up too, man. I feel like this is kind of in the way, but I feel a little naked without it.
It's fine. It's a big part of our lives, so.
It is.
The only thing that ever came between us was a nice hard piece of wood.
Good point. I like the way you think.
But it's part of the thing that bonds us too. So.
Yeah, it's true.
So anyway.
So we got Mr. Bouquet here, soon to be.
Glad to be here.
Dr. Bouquet.
Indeed. I defended my dissertation in 4 days.
It's amazing. Very proud of you.
Appreciate that.
Very grateful to know you for 17, 18 years.
Well, the feeling is mutual, my friend.
Cheers.
I love you too.
Love you, buddy.
Nice bourbon here.
Yeah.
Bourbon with some Topo Chico.
Filled by mezcal over here.
Thanks for introducing me to the Topo Chico and bourbon, by the way.
Yeah, it's a great mix. Just brings out the flavor.
It's good stuff.
Topo
it's like
Chico
liquid sunshine.
with anything makes it better. This is HEB version, but it doesn't matter. Same difference.
It's crazy water.
Oh, you're right.
It's source of Mineral Wells, yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was born.
Mineral Wells, Texas, yeah. I was born in Dublin, Texas.
Oh.
Way back when there was a hospital there.
There's so many jokes about Dublin, Texas. Well, that's where we're both kind of from, but you have a little more diversity in your background as far as where you've lived. So, can you talk about that a little bit? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I was born in Dublin. I lived there until I was 8 years old. My parents got divorced when I was 3 or 4, and then mom got remarried, and then I think I was 8, and then we moved down to Corpus Christi, Texas. Lived in Corpus for a few years, and then Dad got a new job, stepfather, but I call him Dad, he's my father. Moved to New Orleans, right outside of New Orleans, Louisiana after that. Went to high school there. Had a lot of fun, to be honest. Had too much fun. So when I graduated high school, I decided to get the hell out of there and get back to Texas. Moved back to this area, went to Tarleton State University. Started working for Dublin Dr. Pepper. And then I was stocking shelves in grocery stores, and then I went into this little bitty crap hole grocery store in Dublin, Texas one day, and there's like the 16-year-old kid in there. Somehow started a conversation, figured out we both play guitar, and then the rest, as they say, is history with us. Yeah.
I looked like a Beatle at that point.
You had kind of a mullet thing going on, yeah.
But on me, though.
I had no facial hair, probably because I couldn't grow it. But I think I was 20. So you're 6 years younger than me?
Yeah.
Something like that. You're Emma's age?
Yeah.
Emma being my wife. Yeah, so I was in my early 20s then. I could grow a little like goatee thing. That was about it. But it wasn't until a few years later where I got inspired by the bearded Texan over here.
Right.
And then grew my facial hair out one time. I think it was, I went to a trip with my wife to Chicago. And so I started growing out before that. And then the response was nice.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I'm not gonna knock them over, don't worry.
Right, it's all good. So yeah, then we both went to Tarleton and started playing music, and then started writing music together. And then I both graduated from Tarleton, and we both got married. Yeah. I'm still married.
Part of the story, yeah. We're gonna have to talk about your tips on marriage longevity here in a little bit, because yours lasted or is lasting a lot longer than mine, and I know it will continue to last.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I remember first time I met you when I was working in the grocery store in Dublin. You walked in, all the ladies liked you already. You know, you had the Matt Bouquet goatee going, but no beard yet.
At one point in my life, I was an attractive man, so it happens.
I think you get better with age, though, I would say.
Getting gray.
Yeah, happens to the best of us.
I decided to have kids right about the time I decided to get my doctorate. For anyone out there who's listening, I don't recommend doing those at the same time. But I had twins as well, so it was pretty crazy, right?
Twinning. A double dose of
Winning.
all.
Yeah.
So what made you want to go that far with your education?
So it was a combination of things. For one, I have like this eternal quest or thirst for knowledge, I guess you could say. And so Emma and I went back to school. Well, we started working at Tarleton for the university, and working there, it was advantageous to go back and further your education. So we both went back together and got our masters, MBAs, and then it was about a year later. I don't know, it was weird. I just had this bug because I was thinking to myself, for one, I was surrounded by a lot of people that I respected that were, I guess you could say, role model type, men that were older than me that I really respected, and I had seen what they had done with their lives, and all of them had doctorates. So I thought to myself, I could do that, you know? And then as I looked into it more in higher education, it opens up a lot of doors. So there are multiple doctors I could have pursued, but the DBA, Doctor of Business Administration, it allowed me to do, opened up several different avenues for career progression, I guess you could say. So there was, with the DBA, you can do either C-level positions like CEO, CFO, CIO, things like that. And CIO is kind of what I still want to do. But it also, because it is research-based degree, then I could teach, instructor and then professor at the college level. And I know a lot of faculty members, and they may tell everybody their lives are pretty hard, but in all actuality, pretty cush.
Doesn't seem too bad.
It's not too bad, no. So,
you know, I think you'd be really good. Of course, I reach out to you fairly often for advice and coaching because I greatly respect your opinion, but I think with your personality and your leadership abilities that you'd be really good at being a professor and shaping minds. And especially if you can go off topic and teach people things that are more useful than just the typical rubric, I guess.
I think,
so to speak.
I think faculty members that have real life work experience that come into teaching after they've gone out and done something with their lives instead of going straight through, I think that's beneficial. And people that I talk to, student-wise, they say that the best professors they've ever had are the ones that are, first of all, they're kind of like no BS kind of people. I don't know how much you want me to censor my language on this.
No, you're good. It's free for all.
But being a Bouquet, I can bullshit with the best of them. But at the same time, I prefer to be a straight shooter and cut straight to the point with
That's
things.
the only way to be.
And speaking of the marriage thing, not beating around the bush, cutting straight to the point if there's an issue, saying this is an issue, we have to address this. That kind of communication can be difficult in the beginning, but once you both figure out the best way to navigate that that conflict part, that's a major key.
It seems like things can just fester, you know, the kind of the concept of you plant a negative seed and it grows into something just vicious if you don't take care of it right away and address it.
Yeah.
You know, you can go by months and there may be an issue and you may not be aware of it and it may be huge, but you're blind to it.
Yeah, and one thing I definitely learned, and I think Dr. Jordan Peterson has touched on this as well, which is somebody I respect quite a lot in his field of psychology, and he's a clinician as well, but he says that essentially, like with Emma and I in the past, when we were younger, I would have an issue and there would be something she had done, you know, that she probably didn't even know. And so for all intents and purposes at that point in time, it wasn't her problem. Because the only one that had a problem was me.
She had no idea.
She had no idea, yeah. So if I didn't say anything to her, then it continued to be my problem that grew and grew and grew. Like you said, it's like planting a seed of, almost like a seed of despair, because it just grows and you fall further into that world of, now I'm gonna look for anything, you know? So,
Do you think at that point you're looking for other issues, or you're just already irritated, and so it just becomes exponentially
yeah,
worse?
I think there's a degree of looking for things as well, but at the same time, you're hypersensitive because you're already upset.
You're already kind of pissed off about things.
You're already pissed off, but at the same time, you're butthurt too. So like, they could do something and
That's politically correct. Go ahead.
butthurt.
That one's fine. It's not off limits.
Oh, okay, that's good. So you're already feeling like that. So not only are you're searching for little things that they do after that, but at the same time, every little single thing that is a negative trait or could be perceived as a negative trait that they have, that you've always just loved, or even just like said, hey, I'll take the good with the bad no matter what, because we're all people, we're all pretty fucked up anyway.
And you know she's looking at you like that sometimes too, and just not telling you.
Yeah, and so we've had a lot of conversations, and just like any relationship, we've had our ups and downs. We've had our really hard points where we had to have really long, in-depth conversations about what we wanted to do, but we're both stubborn, but at the same time, we're both fighters. So that it's like never really we're gonna let this thing go. It's like we're gonna make it work, you know? So, but the number one thing I would say in relationships is you have to be extremely choosy in the beginning, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I was single, living the single life, like when you met me.
You had a good life for a long time as a
It
single.
was fun.
It seemed like a good time.
I had a lot of fun.
It gets lonely too, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, yes and no. It gets lonely emotionally. Physically, I really didn't get lonely, but emotionally, it did at times, you know. Because you see, I have older siblings, step siblings and biological siblings, and they were having kids, having families, having kids, and I would see my nieces, and you know, at that time it was my nieces, and then my nephews, and at some points in time, honestly, it was like, yeah, the hell with that, I'm not gonna do that, because it's tough. You have 2 kids just like me, man. It's funny thing with the kids. You should know, by the way, if you have a conversation with me, this is gonna go any which way, all over the place.
It's all good.
Rabbit.
We're all a little
Rabbit holes.
scatterbrained.
Yeah, you are. It's one of the things I love about you.
Not denying
So,
it.
but yeah, now you got me off topic.
Whoa, man. It's not what we're trying to do here. We were talking about kids, and
Yeah.
I think you're going down that path.
Yeah. Plus, I've got a little bourbon there in me too, and I had a
Perfect.
beer.
Best conversations, bourbon.
Yeah.
There's something that can catch on fire behind us. That's good too.
Yeah, the gas is turned off to it though. But yeah, with the kids, I didn't. Em and I both when we first got together, and honestly, for many years. Well, going back to what I was saying. Sorry, I did get off topic. I was single, and then I think, I don't know if you ever met I was engaged once upon a time, and thank God. Thank
Christy.
God that fell through. Yeah, Christy. Thank God that fell through, because the old cliche that you're not just marrying them, you're marrying their family.
There's no lawsuits with names. It's still fairly anonymous. Gosh, I'm
That's
scout,
fine.
man. Go ahead. I cut you off.
No, it's quite all right. Thing is, I'll touch on that one here in a second too. But yeah, I was engaged, and thank God it didn't work out. But after that, I was just like, I'm never getting married again. And I know I'm never getting engaged. I'm never doing anything like that. I'm never getting married. And I was perfectly okay with that. And then it was really weird. I met this girl with a great booty at Dr. Pepper, and
And how old were you then?
27, I think.
Okay, so you were smart and you waited, in my opinion. Wait a little bit.
Well, that was just, had no intentions of getting with her either. And the weirdest thing, like, we just became friends. And then it just, like, the friendship, there was always a physical attraction there, but it was a friendship. And then one day we were just, like, kind of talking, and it was like, yeah, is there something here? And both of us were, like, kind of scared to say it, you know what I mean? And then we did, and
No, I feel like
I didn't get married
those-
until I was one though.
I feel like those relationships end up being better because there's like the slow burn. Like you ease into it, there's no pressure. A lot of people jump into things way too soon. I've been there many times before.
Yes.
And we see how that results for me too.
So I'm glad you said that because my educational background is business, not psychology, but psychology is a passion of mine, I guess you could say, because if you can understand people, that really helps you make sense of a world that makes no sense. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So with that, the slow burn, that is something that I think is extremely important. And one of the hardest things I think for human beings in general to do, but especially when you're young and you get into a relationship, is the slow burn is not just emotional, it's physical too.
Yeah.
So if you've seen couples that they just go and like they experiment with everything under the sun sexually, and then they get married. 2 years into the marriage, they're bored and they start seeking other things. So with Emma and I, we made it a point to go slow, but not like not do anything. It was more of make sure to take it in moderation. Because if you have sex all the time, for example, and you have an argument, if you have sex after the argument, it doesn't have the same impact as if you make it a more special thing, you know what I mean? And it's really hard to do. It takes a lot of self-control, especially when you're younger. And as a man, you can be like, gosh, I really don't think this is happening enough, you know? But as you get older, you realize that it's probably better that you don't burn it out, because then you'll burn hot, and then you'll supernova and explode and wipe out everything around you.
You know, one thing I've noticed with you and Emma when we go to dinner, and I noticed the opposite this evening when you and I were out. When you go to dinner, you're very present. You don't have your phone out all the time. You're talking to each other. You're interacting with me. If the kids are with you, you're all hands on deck there. But I looked around this evening, and 4 of the tables around us, and it wasn't just couples. They had their phones out. There was a table of college girls beside us that were watching videos, like their own videos on 3 different phones. And I made a comment, like, what happened to social interaction? And, and it's like a dying art. And I think that really helps you and Emma. You seem to be very much in the moment and very present when you're out on dates or when I'm around, you know, when friends are around. And I really appreciate that about both of y'all.
Well, maybe it's because I'm an old man, but you're right though, man, it's ridiculous. And those college girls, actually, you don't want to eavesdrop, but I was hearing them talk and they were watching videos and then bitching to each other about the videos that they're watching. So I was thinking to myself, my God, what a vicious cycle. You know what I mean?
A lot of negativity there,
I'm
too.
unhappy, so I'm going to watch things that make me unhappy and then make everybody else around me unhappy because I'm like breeding my negativity out of them.
Yeah, you know, people talk about being the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And if you're hanging out with people like that are negative all the time, you're going to be negative almost perpetually.
Shit, what does that say for me? People I hang out with the most are you, Emma, and my 2 kids.
We're all damn good influences, especially your kids.
I try not to act like a 2.5-year-old, but
Yeah.
sometimes I'm sure I do.
Gotta have some fun every now and then in life.
Yeah. Let's side note on that. It was funny because before we started this thing, I was getting my kids ready for bed, and we kept them up later than normal, and they were being hellions. And so it's like pushes you to the brink, you know, where you're like,
You're flying solo tonight because mom's out getting a break and hanging out with friends, which is
That's
super
really good.
important.
Yeah, she needs to do that. I love having the kids to myself too, though, because since there are 2 of us and 2 kids, we have to run man-to-man coverage a lot. So a lot of times my son I'm like his primary parent, and Emma, you know, my daughter, hangs out with her more or gravitates toward her more. So
It's both latched on that way. Sometimes it's the
yeah,
opposite.
yeah. But honestly, that doesn't bother me because truth of the matter is, as much as any wife or any woman could
Don't you judge me.
frustrate you or me or any, you know, spouse to no end sometimes, Emma is probably the greatest woman I've ever known. Sorry mom, but she is.
You have an awesome wife and an awesome mother. Yeah.
My mother's awesome, yeah.
Yeah, such a sweet lady. It's good to get to see
Super
her today.
sweet. Yeah.
A lot sweeter than you, but you turned out all right.
Yeah. Sometimes sometimes the
Almost
fruit
right.
can be diluted compared to the tree, I guess. Suppose.
That's how we see it now. So, you talked about it earlier, but you getting a very different experience as a parent right away, kind of later in your 30s. And
Parent in 30s?
yeah, late 30s,
30?
early 40s,
39. I was 39 when they were born.
which is not really typical these days. I mean, I think it's growing more where people are waiting until they're 30 and they get married, which I think is a great choice. Because when you're early 20s and even 25, we're all kind of dumbasses, I think, especially men.
But you have more energy.
You
You can deal with lack of
Yeah,
sleep.
maybe. I don't know.
Less patience, I would say, though.
Yeah, for sure. But what do you think is unique about being a twin parent? And it seems to me like there would be a lot of efficiencies in it, even though you're doubling up and as you said earlier, it's kind of all hands on deck and you're focused on individual kids. But what do you? So you have your brothers that don't have twins, and you see my kids and all that. But what do you think the big difference is, and what are the benefits to it, and what's kind of the drawbacks if there are any? I don't think you can ever say there's a drawback to being a parent.
No, there's no drawback to being a parent. And the truth is, for having a singleton, which I didn't know that was a term.
What is that?
A singleton
Educate me.
is one child.
Oh, okay.
So a parent that has one child, it's called a singleton
Okay.
pregnancy or singleton child.
Never heard of that.
Nor did I, but it's only because I have twins. But Emma and I, neither one of us, we don't know any better. All we've known is twins because we didn't have any kids before. And we shall not have any after. Mainly because we're just, I'm 42 now.
Yeah, a boy and a girl. You know, you got the perfect mix.
Boy and girl, yeah. So
They're adorable. Well behaved.
adorable.
They seem like they're going to be brilliant as well already.
I hope so.
Very impressed by what y'all done with your parenting, and I know you stuck to a very disciplined routine. And I wish that was kind of what we had done with my kids. I think it helps. And mine are good now, but there was some struggles for a while. Of course, they went through divorce and everything like that too. But
That's
they're
hard
good
with
now.
kids.
Yeah.
I went through divorce when I was a child as well, and it was really hard.
You know some of that, yeah.
Yeah. So with the twins, the absolute just necessity to survive, to get everything in your life down to a perfectly well-timed, oiled machine structure and routine, that's probably a benefit as well, because a result of that is at the same time I had to structure everything and get everything up and going for my doctorate as well. So my life is completely structured and compartmentalized, but because of that, days fly by and everything's good and you reach your goals,
Yeah.
And seeing the differences, I don't know how many people are going to see this. This may piss some of you off. Trigger warning right now. Boys and girls, seeing these stark differences between them from birth, because they're the same exact age, 22 minutes apart. Boy, girl, totally different creatures.
Yeah.
Totally different.
I can say the same about my kids.
Both kids, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's some similarities there, but stark contrast to each other. My son, you can roughhouse and play, you know what I mean? He loves that stuff.
Yeah.
My daughter, no, not so much,
And it could be personality too, but I think some of it is around biological sex too.
Oh, absolutely, man. Just seeing the things that they gravitate to, their attention different. Victor he's way more outgoing, probably because he's a mini me, and she's a mini Emma, so she's a little more introverted. It's pretty crazy.
They have both the personalities.
But
sharks with laser beams.
Yeah, freaking sharks are freaking laser beams. Yeah. Aaron brought this up. Aaron is my brother, my younger brother.
Another
So
brilliant and handsome dude.
He's pretty good looking. I'm better looking, but he's taller, so we'll call it a draw. So Aaron mentioned something the other day, because he came down last week and he was here.
Okay.
And so he said,
Future episode.
Okay. Yeah. So he said, it's funny. I never realized until recently that kids nowadays they'll say things in reference to stuff they see on social media. He says with the stuff that we reference, movies and TV shows and stuff, and so things like that, like freaking shark with freaking laser beams. So we watched movies for our age, so we reference them, like Blazing Saddles and things like that.
Oh man.
So it's different, and the generations are different. I don't know what it's going to be like for our kids, man.
I think I agree with it. I agree with you. I think some of the stuff we watched as kids, and there's not that much of a gap between any of us, but it's pretty timeless because there's 22-year-olds that I know that have seen a lot of that. But the stuff that came out as they grew up, it seems like it was a bit of trash since they go back and dive back 15 years and have watched a lot of that. But
you mean like Rocky 75 and stuff like that?
Yeah, stuff like that.
Remaking movies. Yeah. For me, that's like songs.
Definitely.
It's either, whenever somebody remakes a song, I'm either going to love it or absolutely despise it. I try not to hate anything, so I won't say I hate it. I abhor it, but I despise some songs. Because there's some songs where like, I wouldn't even, if anybody asked me, hey, would you remake this song up here? I'm like, no, I'm not touching that one. Because I'll cover it.
Yeah.
I would cover it, but I'm going to
difference.
cover it. I'm going to cover it, maybe take some artistic liberties in it, mainly because, like, I can't sing like Paul McCartney.
So you just adapt it to whatever works for
do what you got to do, yeah.
Bouquet.
But changing songs, some songs are just, like, sacred, and I can't do that.
I'll give it to you when we sit around and jam, when you're kind of doing your solo stuff, when you're covering a song, a lot of time you'll take off on it, and I'm like, oh, I see what he's playing now, but you make it your own so much most of the time.
Some of it's out of necessity.
Yeah.
Because of my limitations as a musician, I guess. And you know how it is, man. You play guitar and you know at a certain point, like I've always been humble about it, but at a certain point you're like, okay, so I figured out how to play this song, and that's a pretty badass song, so okay, maybe I'm good. You know what I mean? But then you watch somebody like, you watch an old Zeppelin video and you watch Jimmy Page just tearing it up and you're like, yeah, I suck.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
And then you have those guitar players that are technically really good. There's one that we both know that we can think of that was a friend, and he could kill it. And
Are you mocking me?
He he would tear up any song and just pick it up. He could hear it on the radio and just pick up the guitar and shred, but he never wrote his own music. And that's what I've always thought was cool about you and I and how we craft songs is, I'm not a great super technical guitar player, but I make up all kinds of things pretty consistently.
I think some of the best ones aren't great technical guitar players.
Yeah, I agree. And then you have people like Clapton. It's like, yeah, very good technical guitar player. The guy from Queen, why can't I remember his name?
Age.
Physics guy, yeah. Astrophysicist. What is his name?
You would ask me right now.
This is embarrassing.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
We'll just edit that part out. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but on the technical thing, there's some guitar players that, I don't know if you've ever listened to my leads, but did you ever hear of a band?
I have front row seats to your leads. Of course I listen to them.
So it's the Pixies. You ever heard the Pixies?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so the lead guitar player for the Pixies, not the.
I used to cruise back roads in college and listen to
the
Pixies. We were sober though.
So he would always take it, and where there was a lead or something, he would just throw this simple little lead in, but he would just bend a note.
Yeah.
So it's like.
Radiohead's kind of like that too.
And you're like, oh, it's almost going to get out of tune. Oh, he's right back, bring it back in. So you're like, okay. And that's something that stuck with me. So a lot of our songs, especially the earlier on ones, you'll hear like Tonight or, Psych Ward Woman, stuff like that. I'll just take like 3 or 4 notes and just bend one or slide or bend it, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of my my shtick, I guess you could say.
And by the way, you got to stick around till the end because we're going to do some jams here in a little bit. Some of the ones he's talking about.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't drink too much.
No, you'll be okay. They might be pre-recorded too from earlier when we were sober. You know what I'm
We'll
saying?
see. I don't know, man. Sometimes loosening up a little bit can make it better.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole songwriting thing. I've always been impressed by your ability to take 3 or 4 chords and just, you're like, hey, check this out. Did this. And then I'm like, oh man, I love it. And I don't know why with you, because I can hear somebody else play and I don't necessarily hear, like nothing just like jumps in my mind.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting out at my mom's old property out in the country, out, in the middle of nowhere under the stars, and you played like this 4 little chords. Usually B minor, A, and G were in there.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
kind of
our,
that's like our safety
or
zone.
cowboy chords, yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm like, dang man, so you start playing it, and then, I mean, how many songs did we write in 10 minutes? You know what I mean?
know, it's amazing. If we could have just kept that going and life didn't kind of derail some of those efforts. And
I think that I think we've gotten more sophisticated in our writing, though.
probably
You know what I mean?
technically a lot better, yeah.
Technically, yeah, but it's also just like more sophisticated, just changing things up and not. I don't know, that early stuff was really raw and.
What's wrong? We didn't really give a fuck what we were doing. We just
No.
played what sounded good, and it didn't matter if even musically if it made sense.
Yeah.
Even the scales over the top of it.
Yeah, and didn't my choice of lyrics now. Why say choice?
You got like Dr. Bouquet stuff going on now, though.
I don't think honestly I don't think I've ever actually had a choice with lyrics. Because I don't know, most of the songs tend to write themselves, if that makes sense.
No, completely.
It's like something just comes together and then start coming up with some tune and then the rest is just there,
Yeah.
And then songs that I have a dream about or something, you know what I mean? And then wake up and play the chords and tell my wife she wrote a song. She's like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, well, I had a dream last night and you wrote a song. Here's the song.
The people that aren't musicians, that kind of sounds crazy, but I know it's like this for you, but I'll get an idea in my head and I have to figure out a way to get it out. And most of the time it's just guitar, and sometimes the idea is beyond what I think my ability is. And I'll toy around until I get better at playing that chord or that melody or just finger picking it out.
5 years later you pick it back up and write it.
Yeah. I'll be toying around just warming up and I'm like, oh, that's badass, I forgot about it. And now with technology, when you and I first started jamming together, we had cell phones that you couldn't send songs through. They weren't smartphones. And that's gonna date us too. We're kind of half analog, half digital.
Well, I've already said I'm 42. Well, I'm 41. I'll be 42 in April. So.
But now I'll sit around and you do the same thing, and I'll come up with a guitar part because I'm not really a singer. I'll come up with a guitar part, and I'm like, hey, I really like this. Usually it takes a few minutes for me to get it out. Most of the time, the way I want it, just toying
Or
around.
on an iPhone and shoot it to me.
And I'll send it to you, and you're like, all right, let's do something.
Let's do some, yeah.
And in the last probably 10 years, that's kind of how we've written music, and then we get together.
Pretty well had to in the last 10 years. Yeah.
But you talk about having these dreams, and I've had a lot of songs come to my head in dreams, mostly instrumental, and I wake up and I'm like, gosh damn it, I gotta get that out. Like, it's gonna drive me nuts, or I'm gonna forget it. Like, get it out and record it. And I'm sure you have the same thing. So you have one song you played earlier that came to your head, and it's about a muse, and then you had the one with Emma.
Called the Muse, yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about both of those?
So the Muse.